Good morning, you guys. Good morning, you guys.
Morning.
Did you guys have fun last night?
Yeah.
I went right to bed.
Me too. Me too.
I have to say something.
Go ahead, this is your panel.
I know what's so interesting is that like a lot of times at these conventions they ask the guests, you know, do you have a specific panel that you do? And so I submit one that's called Voice Acting 101. And when I got the schedule, I was like, you're not doing it alone. And I was like, wow, that's nice, because I don't always like to travel alone. So I'm glad that you guys are with me.
We both got your panel.
Yeah.
On this journey.
We just gang troop.
So it is, they're like, it's Jack in my panel. And I'm
Jack,
like,
we're
you get in the middle, I'm like sitting in the back now, like, you know.
Straight out of Compton over here, we just gang troop.
Straight out of Compton.
So, yeah. Did you guys introduce yourselves?
No. I'm Veronica Taylor.
I'm Dante Bosco.
And I'm Eric Stewart for some reason. Okay. Do you want me to leave?
Yeah, why not?
It's your panel.
All right, so here's the deal. So what I like to do at the conventions is try to pay it forward a little bit. This is a great way to ask questions about how to get into the business, how we got into the business. It's also cool to say, like, what's your favorite line you said is Brock and stuff like that. That's cool, I love that. But you have a lot of years of experience as entertainers in the business here. Take that opportunity to pick our brain so that maybe either you can get into it or you can be so scared you don't want to get into it. Right?
I know.
So that's my lead into this panel, because I've been a voice actor for over 25 years, and I've directed, I've produced a lot of the cartoons that I've been in and that you've seen. And so this is a great way to learn something from us, because I'm sure in this room right now, besides maybe potential actors, you've got artists, you've got writers, you've got editors, you've got, all that stuff is going on right in this room, which is great, because you guys are like the future production companies that will hire us. So we're going to be really nice to you. But so take the chance to pick our brains. So does anybody have any questions that you want to start with?
I think we have one more actor in the house one time. Ladies and gentlemen.
Very good.
Oh, it's Todd.
Oh, yeah! Excellent.
Everyone wants your autograph.
That is so funny.
I'm an impersonator or a voice actress or something. I'm not really that much of a voice actress, and I was wondering, is there? I know there's nothing wrong with impersonations and all, but do you have any advice for not making them sound too much like it? Like.
You mean too much like?
So I don't get like a lawsuit or anything.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing an impersonation. If you're doing a commercial, though, I gotta say that sometimes it'll say, like, especially if you're doing a voice of a living person.
And like avatar personalities?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
But at the end of a commercial, if you're doing an impersonation, like if you were doing, like, say, something fun like Donald Trump, at the end you would have to say voice impersonation by blah blah blah, or this was a voice impersonation. So that's the only time that it's a problem to do it dead on. Otherwise, we do it all the time, or at least we try to.
Yeah, impersonation. Like, for example, give me someone to impersonate. Anybody.
Dante Bosco.
Someone that's not here.
Dante Bosco.
Someone harder. Anyone.
George Clooney.
George Clooney. Okay, here's my George Clooney. Okay, and so everyone close your eyes. Here's my George Clooney. Hi. That's George Clooney. See how real that was? You have to say it.
Yes, that was George Clooney.
Whoa, do you guys see what's at the back of the room here? No.
No, almost.
That's true. Yeah, George Clooney's cosplay.
I am George Clooney. That was a good question. By the way, let's let Todd introduce himself.
Well, good morning, guys. Again, I apologize.
No, it's fine.
My name is Todd Habercorn, and I like to try out roles like Natsu from Fairy Tale. All that fun. So I'm looking around the room, trying. It jogs my memory. Italy from Italia. Hello. Yes. What else? Tenkai Nights, Ceylon. Right. Thank you. But lots of fun stuff. Oh, yes, Oran too. Wait, you're Hikaru on the right, on my right. You, yes. Bam! I won the which one is Hikaru game. So, thank you guys for being here and letting me play up here with all these talented folks. Thank you.
There you go. All right, who has another question? All right, microphone ninja.
Good morning. I was just wondering, are you able to financially support yourself just purely as a voice actor?
That's a great question.
Nope.
So being a voice actor is doing many things with your voice. So you might know me from cartoons, but I do commercials, I do audiobooks, I do industrials, things like that. So anything that involves the voice. So our careers kind of go like this when we're, oh, I'm in a cartoon, no, I'm not in a cartoon, oh, I'm in a cartoon. So we fill in the blanks like that. I am a full-time voice actor as well as a musician. That's what I do, and a director. It's not always easy. There's some years that are great, and there's some years that are not great. But if you were going to ask, do I support myself? Well, there's food on the table.
Crutches.
Sometimes it's a big meal with like a side order, and sometimes it's grilled cheese. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a passion. That's the thing. I know that's cliche to say, you're supposed to love what you do and do what you love, but if I didn't enjoy being what I consider, I'm an entertainer because I do so many different things, I wouldn't do it. I would do something else. But I love it, and as long as I can eat a little bit, that's fine. But good question. You guys can answer that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate. I've been an actor for 30 years now, and which just sounds crazy coming out of my mouth also.
He was one.
But I've been, it's a hard industry. I always say every year you get through a year in Hollywood, everyone feels fortunate. You do like this big sigh of relief, like, I survived another year. But I've been fortunate for 30 years to be a working actor and to live a very cool life. Like, I've been all right. I've been fortunate.
Yeah. No, this guy always doing something. Always like when I sit down to think about playing a video game, I'm like, what's Dante doing? And then I put the video game down, and then I get my spreadsheets.
Hollywood is, which I think you guys all know, it's not like just one thing. Like Eric said, it's like we're entrepreneurs, right? So you're basically the CEO of your own business. That's you, and it could be voice acting, it could be commercials, it could be film acting, television acting, music, whatever you want to create for your corporation. I mean, I have a t-shirt company, I have a production company, I write plays, I create TV shows. So it's like that, like you kind of do everything, but it all helps out.
Yeah, that's just a little bit of everything. It all funnels into kind of the overhead umbrella of your passion, hopefully. They're all different things, and if you're fortunate enough to diversify and do that at the right time, I think it allows you to be in this industry full time, which I think we're all. And eat, yeah. Side orders. No, but I think we're all very fortunate enough up here to do this full time, and we're lucky that it has sustained us and our families for a long time, and we're very fortunate to do that. Now, this wasn't the mindset. Like, I know a lot of kind of golden age actors that were back in the day in the 30s, 40s, 50s, stuff like that. And in that era, you just didn't. If you were an actor, that's all you did. That's just the way it was. You were just an on-screen actor, and that's what you did. And so a lot of those actors now, it's tough because they're still alive, and they're in their 80s and stuff. And every time I talk to them, they're like, "Save your money, boy." And I'm like, "John, you're hurting me." Where is it? It's been a great business, and like Dante was saying, like Eric was saying, I mean, it is your passion, and so you put in those long hours, and it sounds like a long time on paper. Like when I say to you, man, I put in 70 hours this week, I was on 6 different flights somewhere. You look at that and you want to rip your hair out and look like you have mange, but it's just part of the passion.
Well, I do think that's where having an acting background helps, because you have to be able to do anything regardless of the genre, let's say, to be able to be on screen or behind the microphone. You do have to be able to diversify in that sense, and to know how to understand the business of entertainment, and how to find work, and how to be a waiter, and then work your other job, and kind of figure out how to do all of that stuff. It's not unlike anything I'm sure that all of you do right now. You figure out what you want to do and how you can afford to do that. Times do change and jobs, the market goes up and down and you never know what's going to happen. We used to have a lot of animation in New York and there isn't much more anymore. So things really do change. I've never been able to only do cartoons, but I've always done everything acting related. And so that's really great, but you do have to scrape around. It's exciting, but never sure.
And touching on what Todd said, in terms of when you get into your golden age, if you're doing work in the union, SAG and AFTRA, you can get a pension. So I'm vested for a pension once I, turn 65. That's great. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it's still like a job, like a union job. And so if you're doing work that's not paying union fees, then it's just in the bank on your, then your food. But if you are doing work that is, under the union, then you are going towards your pension and health and also your pension and health. So there's something there too. There is something waiting for you, like $5. All right, who's got a question for the microphone ninja? Let's go in the back on this side. Let's give these guys a little help here and give him a little exercise. Right, yep.
Mainly for Mr. Todd there, working with Funimation, has there been many voice actors that you've come across?
Yes.
Have there been many voice actors involved?
Yeah, was one mostly watching a lot of anime from Funimation, and a character everywhere on the corner. What I'm trying to say is what is it to get into Funimation? What did you have to do?
Oh, okay. Oh, so the subtext of your question is, how can I take your job? I think it was just
Pretty much.
Blown away by Natsu at one point, but no.
Sooner than that. We've had people just come into the building and just sit on the couch, and we're like, I'm sorry, what session are you here for? Oh, I'm just waiting for an opportunity to possibly audition. And then it's like slowly pull out the taser. Activate the cop cam. So I've been with Funimation for a long time. I've worked with them and branched out and worked with other companies. Of course, I've directed for them, written for them, and produced and all that fun stuff. As far as getting in with them, the thing about it is everyone tries to break this mystical mold of how do you get into this acting business, and in a way it has a lot of attributes of any other job. You have to be good with people. You have to not be an a-hole. You have to be talented. But all of those things have to come into play, because if you have one of those things, it'll get you in the door, but it won't keep you there.
True.
And so you also have to go into it, you have to know the reasons. You don't trick yourself about what the reasons are that you're going into it. If you're going into it because you want to be famous, that's not a lot of fuel in your tank. Because this job is 80+% rejection. Every Legend of Korra that I book, there's 15 other things that I don't book. So you have to keep that in mind. And so for me, coming from a background of asking a lot of women out on dates and getting rejected, this was an easy transition. So you have to be prepared for that. I am a scholar at rejection. And so, don't even get me started on my Asian mother and what she thinks about what I do. Anyway, but Funimation is great. I've been there a long time, watched them grow. I remember when we were in a small building that we shared with a bank. And on one end of the hall was Funimation, on the other end of the hall was bankruptcy workshops that you had to go to. Not us, but there are two types of people that go into the building. People with the sad face going to that side, people with the happy face going to this side. And then they transferred to a 48,000 square foot building with 10 studios. And I was helping them build those studios and get them up and running. And on this side of the building is production and marketing and all that kind of stuff, and legal. On this side are all the studios and everything. And we've had a lot of, that company's had a lot of great success. They've been very kind to me. I'm their West Coast booth. So whenever they have shows that they need to do on the West Coast, they come to my studio and we do that there. We've had awesome things happen. Recently with Fairy Tale, we had a Make-A-Wish kiddo come in, and all he wanted to do is see us record a little bit of Fairy Tale. And that was really cool. And it's hard to know what to do in those situations, because you don't want to how do you deal with it? You know what I mean? Because it's kind of, it's a sad but happy type thing. So we were like, load them up with swag, give it to them. Coffee mugs, hand towels, or what is that, a fairy tale fob, give it to him. I don't know what it does, but loading him up with all this stuff, but he had a great time. But getting in with Funimation is, you get your demo together, you get your head shake, get some experience, and you go in there and you give it to them and hope for the best, do a rain dance, I don't know. The waiting list, it's a 300 person, it's a huge list. It's like a 2.5-year wait. Hey, listen, Rome wasn't built in a day, So good luck to you unless you're in my same vocal range that I reach in the parking lot.
So yeah, that was actually great. So let's also talk about, how to get into the business, right? The voice acting 101 the whole thing, right? So yeah, Funimation, 4K, all the animation stuff, that is a small percentage of being a voice actor. All right? The cartoon stuff is a small percentage. Animation stuff is a small percentage of what we all do, even though you know us from that. So your goal is not to be, I only want to do anime. I want to do anime dubs. That's what I want to be as a voice actor. What you want to do is anything that requires your skill with your voice, right? So how far away is Funimation from you right now? Are you going to commute for auditions? You think they're going to hire you remotely right now?
Nope.
No. So where are you? Do you live here?
Lake City.
So how far is that from here?
2 hours.
Okay, so in your town, there are 2 businesses that require the services of a voice actor. There's ad agencies and there's radio stations, okay? Both of those companies require those services. So what I stress a lot is, because this is kind of how I started too, there's a lost art of being an intern. Everybody wants to get paid immediately for what they do, right? Yep. But when you show somebody you want to actually learn, sometimes you get your foot in the door. Local radio station, they produce commercials all the time, live reads on the air. You go to your local radio station, what's your first name?
Ben.
Ben. You go to your local radio station, you go, hey, I want a job, can you hire me as an assistant? And they go, no, we're not hiring. You go to your local radio station and you say, hey, my name's Ben, I'm really interested in this business. Right? And of course, this goes hand in hand with the fact that you're going to somebody to maybe study, learn about voice acting. That's going on the side, right? But you get your foot in the door there and you say, listen, I've got about 8 to 10 hours a week. I'd love to I'll make coffee, I'll make copies of scripts, I'll clean up, I'll take the garbage out. In return, all I want to do is learn. I'm an aspiring voice actor. I want to learn about voice acting. I'd love to watch the DJs on the air. I'll give you my time if you let me learn. You say that to me as a business owner, I'm going to say, yeah, this guy is willing to sacrifice his time to learn from me. Great. So now you're in the building, Ben. You're making coffee every morning, right? You're cleaning the place up. You're in the room. You're watching the DJs. You're getting a sense of what goes on in that studio. A live read comes in. 10-second tag for a Pizza Hut. They need a young guy voice to just read this 10-second tag. Producer of the show goes, I do not have enough time to cast for this thing, and our DJ is not right for this. It's not the right voice. You know what? What's that kid's name that's always cleaning up? Let's ask Ben to just come in here and read for us. Ben reads. He does a great job, right? All of a sudden, he's the young guy, live read guy in the studio. If you don't think that's how it works, that's how it worked for me. I got my first job for Enterprise Rent-A-Car because I worked at the studio making coffee. Okay? So you get your foot in the door, you have that opportunity in front of a lot of people. It's about being there. Now, I'm not gonna, if you were terrible, you're never going to get invited back into that booth. But if you want to be a great carpenter, right? I use this analogy all the time. You'd go to the greatest carpenter in town and say, I will clean up your shop, hang up your tools in return for learning how to build those cabinets and those pieces of furniture that you do. Because over time, you're going to learn how to do it, right? And then at some point, that boss of yours is going to go, I cannot hang cabinets at that house and put that, you know, that dresser over there and that kitchen over there. Do me a favor, go to Mrs. Jones and you install those cabinets for me. Because you learned it.
Then you learn their food allergies.
Yeah.
And one day he's too sick, and he's like, I need Ben to come in and help me, a sweet kid.
But now you're so that's number one business, right? And then there's ad agencies. So if you are studying with someone and you have made a demo reel and you are ready to send out your demo reel, which is not the demo reel that you wrote all the copy yourself, produced in your house, and played for your mom, and she said, that's fantastic. And we all know what happened with Todd with that.
Yeah, 5 to 10,
Right? But there are local ad agencies, not national ones. Is there like Bob Chevrolet in where you live, like the guy that owns the Chevrolet thing, like 5 locations is doing his own commercials, which is fantastic. I mean, the acting is unbelievable, right? Right? He probably wrote his own spots, and of course, everybody who's getting paid by him is like, you are great. Keep doing this. But there is an ad agency that is producing those local spots. So if you need to send a demo reel to someone that might hire you because you can actually get to that studio and meet those people, it will be a local ad agency. So look up who's producing that as well. So that's just to, yes, it's great to do the funny voices for you, and it's great to do the character. Obviously, we're here at a convention that is based upon this specific thing that we do. But think about where you are and try to be a big fish in a small pond. You don't need to travel to necessarily do voice work. So there you go. All right, microphone ninja. Let's go right up here because this is right here.
What? Sometimes I forgot, and I'm gonna go get I guess this ends 11:30. It might be a little later.
Veronica, you want to start with that?
How do we deal with rejection? I try to look ahead to the next audition. There, like Todd was saying, the majority of things one auditions for, one does not get. And if you dwell on that, it is quite depressing. So I do tend to, I put a lot of energy into each audition, and then you just have to let it go and try to think about the better things.
Yeah, rejection, you get to the point where you're like, I'm never gonna work again. You're just like, I'm never gonna work again. I'm just gonna go to these auditions.
Yeah.
And what happened, what means like you just kind of get to a point where you realize you're just an actor, and the audition, it's not a rejection. It's just another opportunity to act today.
Right.
Like you're like, oh, so I got an audition, I actually can act today. So sometimes when I go into an audition, if it's on screen or even for a voice or something like that, you're like, well, you guys, the lucky ones, are going to see this one-time performance. It is a one-time performance only today. Exclusive, and you people in the room are lucky to see this. So basically, life in the industry, like life, it's all about your perception on how you're living your life. And you're going to have the same day, it's just how you look at it. So if you look at it as rejection, it could be depressing. If you look at it as, this is a chance for me to act today, and the people that are lucky enough to see this one-time performance are going to see me doing my Batman.
Yeah.
And what you also have to think about is what goes on behind the scenes in terms of who's making the choices and why really have a little to do with you.
Little, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you think about it that way too, and you're like, I might have reminded them of their ex-boyfriend. That's why they didn't pick me. And you're like, well, I can't control that. I mean, that was his fault.
Don't take it so personally. I think that's the thing about the industry.
You let it go, and also you forget it. Like I remember, when I was living in New York, and you'd have like a bunch of auditions during the day, and if you added up the potential earnings you could have made if you booked all of them, you'd be like a millionaire every week, right? I would actually forget. I'd come home and be like, so what'd you read for today? I was like, there's a bank thing and I don't know. Honestly, just do it and forget it. And then if you get the call the next week going, hey, they want to book you for that
It's
thing.
always a surprise, right?
Yeah, you're like,
no matter what it is.
But if you go and going like, I am gonna get this thing, so.
Whenever they call, like, you got the job, you're like, really?
Yeah.
You forget what you did, just like Eric's saying. So, because what I do is I just roofie it right after every audition. And then when I get it, it's a great surprise. I'm like, I don't even remember getting out of bed that day.
You should probably save the money from buying those roofies.
Well, my mom was a doctor for 30 years. The sample packs, sample packs of roofies they hand out. The value pack from Costco.
But that's a good question. All right, who's got another question? How about right on the edge, right there, right? Yeah,
On the edge.
Yep, keep going. You got it. A little further. No, just a little.
Hello, when you're working on voice acting in shows,
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
how much of the production are you aware of? Like, how much of the story do you know when you're doing that acting, and you just
looking at the script and reading it, or do you really know what's going on?
So you're talking just as the actor. See, I directed a lot of the shows that I worked on. I also directed myself on a lot of shows, and yet I still didn't know what was going on.
A little bit about that process.
Well, I don't read the audiobooks ahead of time before I do them, which of course is why they're so fantastic.
I do.
I know you do. I cold read everything. I cold read the scripts that are given to me in cartoons, and even as a director, I get the overall, like, this show is about playing cards and battling. Got it. You know? Because there's really nothing like I haven't seen before. It's all the same. It's all the same stuff. It's basically just different words,
But
right?
you're playing the moment, and the moment is what's the most important.
Yeah. So we don't, and we also don't always get a chance to get the scripts more than one episode at a time. When we would buy full episodes of like Yu-Gi-Oh, right? We'd work on like 3 shows, and then another show, an episode would come in, and we'd be like, oh, we thought that guy was a bad guy. That's going to be interesting. But you know, you want to be able to take the time. If you're working on a show that was going out the door as fast as a show like Yu-Gi-Oh was, where we're doing like 2 episodes, a week, and we record 1 actor at a time. So it's like, Dan Green's doing like 300 cues, and Kaiba's doing 300 cues, and you have no idea what's going on in terms of like the final thing until you fucking sit down and review the show. It needed to go out the door like 2 days later. You don't have the time to do that. Now, if you're working on like a film, you might be able to really finesse that. And I've had the pleasure of working with Frank on a couple of movies, and we directed you on a couple of films that we worked on, and that's cool. But most of the time, at least for me, I don't get a heads up on what the story is going to be, and that is frustrating. But that's the other thing, is that what I said about nothing is new. I can also, if you give me a commercial and it's about dismantling an engine or some industrial thing that's highly technical, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I've said that I can talk about using a feminine product as if I've used it, because I can substitute what's going on, what we're talking about, the nouns, the verbs, and stuff like that, and convince you. I can talk about things as if I know exactly what I'm talking about when I don't. Like this, right here. You know what I'm saying? But that's it, is that you can break it down. You can break it all down. So anyway.
Yeah, like when we did Avatar, Last Airbender, and Korra, the whole seasons weren't written yet, so we didn't know what was going to happen, let alone, I don't know if they knew exactly what was going to happen, which is cool. And then in life, like Erica said, it's really about the moment, right? We don't know what's going to happen, and the best acting comes from just being in the moment, trying to be truthful in the moment to tell a story. We don't know what's going to happen in the end of the story. We just know in this scene, I want this, you want that, and we're trying to be truthful in that moment. So it kind of helps out, but when you're doing a movie, they do expect you to kind of...
And a play, obviously a play you're going to rehearse. Like we didn't rehearse our cartoons, except for Turtles.
And Ninja Turtles, we did have a read-through before.
Yeah, you get like one little... Yeah, if it's when you do a television episode, you sit down and you read through the whole episode together, so you know what's going on in the episode, but you may not know what's going on next week, or I didn't see.
That's a good question.
So wait, none of you read your audiobooks ahead of time?
I don't read. Tab, do you read your audio? I don't read my audiobooks.
You really do it all cold? How do you figure out the voices?
You're supposed to read the book before.
I read every single thing.
I've never done an audiobook.
How do you have the time to read the book and then read the book?
And then read the book. That's why I don't have any time. I have no social life.
So you're supposed to. That doesn't mean that we do. Now, what you can do is when you have these genres, kind of like what Eric was saying, once you've done a genre, one book of every genre, you kind of know how these books are going to go. You really do. Like, I can look at a chapter, I know exactly who's going to be the good guy, and who's going to be the bad guy, who's going to be the best friend, who's going to be the girl that loves the hero, that doesn't get him. You just know, especially with like these romance books. If you turn to any romance book, on page 100, they're doing it. Page 100, try it. I just did a romance book, and I scanned ahead to page 100. He unbuttons his shirt. It's go time on page 100. So if you're ever out on a date, that's what you say at the end of the night. It's like, shall we go to page 100?
It's only page 80.
No, I understand why.
You mark the characters for the voices there.
There are characters in those?
Oh my God!
No, see, I mean, honestly, the way that I do, I mean, I've done a couple of crazy sci-fi books. The only one that I got, there was a book that was like written in like the 50s, a sci-fi book, and everyone had a name that was remember how like Blade Runner, the guys in the street spoke like a hybrid language, right? So everyone had a hybrid name of different ethnic groups, you know, like Sven Yagasaki. Things like that, but they didn't describe what they sounded like until later. Like, so it'd be like Sven Nagasaki comes in, and it's like, and you're like, oh, he's the Swedish Japanese guy. Okay, so I guess he has a Swedish accent. And you're doing the thing that says later on, the Frenchman, and you're like, really, the Frenchman? Like you couldn't have put that before, like the Frenchman. Yeah. Sven, that would have helped me out. So that was the only time I stumbled on that. But most of the books that I do, even though I'll do like mysteries and things like that, I work for like one author a lot, and he doesn't like too many of like going into different characters, like cartoony. He likes it to be narrated. So like if I'm doing, you know, and she said this, you know, and he said that. It's just sort of changing my register a little bit. The only time I've done like hardcore accent is I just recently did a book, it was a funny book, where Elvis had faked his death and came back as a private investigator.
Named Caitlyn Jenner.
Close. His name is Aaron King, which is kind of funny. And so the whole book, man, I had to do it like Elvis and do the whole book in his voice. Even when like other people were talking, and they're like, and she said, "Hey, man," and of course, and everyone in the book, because I didn't want to break that fourth wall. I wanted it to be as if, you know, Elvis was telling the story.
Elvis was narrating.
Right? Yeah. So it was really cool. It was called Elvis Has Not Left the Building, and so look for it. But what was cool is I went in and I've got all of his movies, and I was watching that, and I was listening to interviews to sort of get the cadence of where he would be also in that age, because it was funny. Everyone would be like, "You seem so familiar. Do I know you?" Like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. But that was the only time that I had to study or know what the voice was. But most of the time, I'm just like, once upon a time. We just go.
And the anniversary of his death is tomorrow.
Oh, no way.
That's right. My birthday. It is. My birthday's tomorrow, yeah.
Like,
so there you go, but good question. All right, who's got another question for us? You want to do it in the front here? Yeah.
Hey Todd, you've done a lot of where you're the main character of animes. Do you get paid more for being the main character because you do a lot more lines and stuff like that?
Honestly, it depends on the show, because I can't go into too much of that because there's certain contractual things that
People here.
Yes. I am very fortunate.
Good question and better answer. Yeah. So how about someone in the back? We haven't got anyone in the back. Yeah, that was the hand thing. Yes.
Yes.
yeah, they'll probably do good.
So I know some of you do some like movies and live action, and you do voice acting. I was wondering how it differs in character development, how you develop your characters, and if there's any difference between live action and voice acting.
Well, I'll only touch on one thing because I'm not an on-camera stage actor. I don't do any of that stuff. The thing that I don't have the freedom to do is stop talking. Okay, especially in a radio commercial, you know, I don't have any of the physical things that I can use as beats. They're stage actor, movie actor, they can say so much with just a facial expression. One of my favorite scenes of all time is in the movie Heat, when De Niro and Pacino are sitting in the diner towards the end of the movie, which is pretty much like a whole ad-lib scene. And they're basically saying, I respect you, but in the next 20 minutes, one of us is going to kill the other person. And it's all like physical things. It's all shifting. It's all just the eyes and stuff like that. And I can't get away with that as a voice actor. I have to paint pictures for you with my words. I have to fill gaps with noises and connecting sentences, things like that. Where if I were on stage and let's say we were doing some mobster movie, right? I'm from Brooklyn, and if I were gesturing like this and walking around the stage, you know, doing this great sort of physical interpretation of the guys that I grew up with, but this was the accent I was using, you'd walk out of the theater and go, that guy was fantastic. He was, what a convincing performance. But if you closed your eyes and be like, that was the worst New York accent I'd ever heard, right? So what I gotta do is I gotta talk like this the whole time, and I gotta be like, listen, I saw this guy, he owes me some money. If I did that, but see, I'm still using my hands. I do that, but you don't see it in the booth. So it still comes across, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have that crutch where, you know, any of these people that are actually also on camera and stage actors will give you a different twist on that if anyone wants to take that. That's what you get. Come on, Dante.
Yeah, you know, I came from I'm an on-screen actor, and I kind of tripped over somewhere and been fortunate to also work with voice acting, and I kind of don't change my style up. It's whether there's a camera in the room or the microphone, you're gonna get a similar performance from me, you know?
It's like sriracha. We know what we're gonna get when we look at
But when you're doing the character, you're pretty much using the same act. When you go to acting school or you study acting, you're doing the same techniques, whatever character you're building. And it's really basic, you know, it goes back to staying in the moment. What does the character want? What's the pathology of the character? Like, where his past is. You kind of do all these things. Whether you do it on paper or you do it kind of subconsciously, you're building your character out. And you're doing the similar work for, I mean, it's not like, oh, this is only an animation character, so I'm only going to do what A, B, and C as opposed to A, B, C, and D. You're going to do the same thing for a character on stage, film, or on voiceover. What Eric was saying is very true. You're still playing the same characters, so like film, television, voice acting, you just got to think of how the medium, how people are portraying, are receiving it, right? It may just be your voice. If you do a film, your face is 20 feet tall on a movie screen, right? So that your performance may change because when you're on TV, your face is like the size of a TV, or your body. If you're on stage, your face is this big and you see your whole body, so your performance changes. And you gotta understand how the audience is receiving you, so it may change physically how you're doing the performance. Like on stage, you may do something big because you see your whole body. On film, because your head is 20 feet tall, you don't have to do anything but maybe think a thought, and the audience will receive that. But the character work that you're doing to create the character isn't different. It's just how you portray it.
And also, technically, you have to memorize everything when you're live.
True.
Yeah.
And when you're just behind the mic, you're reading it. So you have a little more freedom to interpret in the moment. And you know, if you're watching what you're dubbing into, or if you're in your head because they're going to draw it later, you can kind of create in the moment because you haven't had much time to prep it ahead of time. But if you're on screen or on stage, you've had time to rehearse, go over your lines, and really flesh things out in a different way. But again, it's all about acting. It's all about really fully creating the character in a split second or over 2 weeks.
And when in doubt, you can go, what would I do in this situation?
Yeah.
And then you do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you were asking. You were asking, you know, where do you find, you know, the character? A lot of the cartoons, we are either, especially if we're doing a dub, we sometimes get, we want to sound like the Japanese did, and here's what they did, and here's the character, and they describe it, and then you're basically just giving it an English, you know, speaking voice. Sometimes it's, this is a tough guy, he's a mean whatever, come up with something. And you know, for me, I just have like my bag of tricks of like maybe the 10 or 15 things that I do as a voice actor, and then I figure out which ones I'm going to connect together in terms of the voice I'm going to use. But then, as Dante was saying, it's also like, what would you do in that situation? We can put ourselves pretty much in any role, even though we've never maybe been, you know, driven a car from a bank robbery and stuff like that. You'd be like, oh, I've definitely had to run away from or my dad. You know what I
mean? Maybe not. I mean, no.
Yeah. Well, you grew up in LA, right? all right. So we got a couple more minutes. Someone else pick somebody. Yeah. Let's do some speed questions. 7. You guys pick somebody. Todd, pick somebody.
You know what? My man, you pick somebody. You've got the mic.
Mike Ninja.
Sounds good.
He's like, this is close.
Of all you guys, what is one of your top favorite, most memorable voice actors or roles you've ever done?
So what role?
That's the people we admire, right? What's your favorite role?
Favorite role, quick question.
Oh, I'm going to say Ash. I love playing Ash. I only said that because you like it. No, I'm just joking.
say Ash too.
That was my favorite. I played for 8 years. It was so rewarding. So yes.
This is tough. Quick question. I guess I really like James because he makes me laugh. So there you go. I know he doesn't get the same. Everyone's like, they're like, you should have said Brock.
I like Prince Zuko because he's just walking the room.
I don't know what's going on.
That's awesome. You guys look great. Natsu from Fairy Tale. So we're on episode 220, so we gotta love it.
Good answer. All right, speed question. Let's go. Mike Hitchell.
15 minutes.
Yeah, Netflix doesn't have the second season.
Does it ever get confused? Like, do you ever have to take a moment to get into the character, or can you like instantly go from one character to the next?
Well, you remember how Todd was telling you he was taking drugs after every role, so. I take it before the roles. I never get confused with the characters. I rarely have to do them, like Brock and James at the same time. I've done live radio, where they've had Eric Stewart on with Brock and James, and the three of us have spoken. Usually that's like pre-coffee and like 6:30 in the morning, and when you're in that sort of state, you don't even know it. It's like autopilot. It's like using the Force. There I can do it. But I don't get confused. Anybody else get confused over their voices?
I mean, what they do is they'll play a reference for you, or they'll play your audition that you did before the role. So then you're able to dial it in. The only time that it gets kind of confusing is sometimes when you're going in for video games, if you finish your major character early, they have some incidental characters they want you to get. And when it starts getting into a long list of characters, maybe they're like, okay, well, let's not have, Tom sound like John, who you just met in town, or something like that. So there's times where that happens. But yeah.
Good question.
And audiobooks, oh my god, and audiobooks. I put markers in the Pro Tools sessions so that I have vocal references for when these characters come in, because there are times, especially I do this one series where it's an international thriller series, so you have people from all over the world interacting, like a woman from Britain, a woman from India, a woman from this, a guy from Ethiopia, a guy from Japan, a dude from Britain. So they're all talking to each other at once, and narration on top of that, seamlessly, in real time, going down a chapter. So I have to have markers in there occasionally if I've taken a break from the book. I'm working on one right now, where it's like, I have a marker for 5 different Russian dudes. You have to make 5 different distinct Russian dudes. That's just on the bad guy side. You got the good guy side, who it's 3 different British guys. One's lower class, one's upper. You have to decide all that stuff, and you have to keep it straight. So.
Which is why I don't read those books ahead of time.
You guys are amazing.
Well, it's only because I can operate my microwave without shutting the door.
Eric, you played a Meta Knight in the Kirby anime, correct?
Yes, I did.
Why did you choose the accent for Meta Knight?
Why did I choose to be Antonio Banderas? That's a good question for this city, because
he's sexy.
Yes. So when they asked me to audition for that show, they were like, it needs to be Meta Knight's really cool. It's very Clint Eastwood. It's low register, real, And I said, well, that's Seto Kaiba. I already do that. And they said, oh. I said, I can't do Kaiba. I said, well, what if I did Antonio Banderas? And this is long before Shrek and Puss in Boots, all right? And they were like, why would Meta Knight be Spanish? And I said, why wouldn't he be Spanish? And they were like, that's a good answer. And so, and if you're not familiar with the show, Meta Knight has a helmet on, so there's no lip flap, right? Which means that my phrasing can be any way I want. And so I did it like that, and then years later, I was down doing a convention in Florida, and a group of young men came up to me and said, did you do the voice of Meta Knight? And I said, yeah. They're like, we just want to thank you. And I realized they were, a Spanish-speaking group of guys. Said, you played the only character on Saturday morning cartoons that sounded like us that was not a stereotype joke. And I was like, wow. And you don't really think about that, because the difference in the cultures too, like what goes on in some of the Japanese shows and then comes over here, like what is it, Jinx? Is that they're very offensive images that don't necessarily are not offensive in Japan, but are here. And so I played the Magikarp salesman on Pokemon. You know, and I mean, I don't know how offensive can you get, right? And of course, I'm an actor. I do what I'm asked to do a lot of times, and there's some shows I don't do. But to play Meta Knight like that and to get that kind of response was very cool. But that is why I chose him. And then, of course, Antonio Banderas started doing to me, and imitated me doing him.
Okay, somebody else.
I've heard at multiple different conventions that some voice actors like to do it in a closet with a mattress.
Is this an 18+ battle? What just happened? Wow.
Like to record in a closet.
Like to record.
Okay, what? I feel like I'm in some sort of X-rated Dr. Seuss book. Do you like to do it in a closet? Do you like to do it in a car? Do you like to do it? I do not like radiation. I'm sorry. I'm ready. I'm sorry. And take 2.
Do we record in closets?
Or do you prefer to do it in the studio?
Like Match Game from like 1978. What just happened here?
So, yeah, I think a lot of people have home studios where nowadays there are many things that we are asked to record at home, especially auditions. But I think overall everyone prefers to record at an actual studio where you see other people.
Yeah, I actually, my first recording studio was in my walk-in closet in my apartment in Brooklyn that was right on the street. So it was filled with 3 walls of my clothing and then a blanket that hung on the door. And I couldn't record it early in the morning because all the taxis were coming up that particular street. But now, then that went to a home studio, which now, and then I removed that from the home and I have a room at another facility so that I can actually go to work and leave work, because having the studio in my home, I would never leave work. So there you go. But it did start in the closet. Anyway, next question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, you guys have a very big impression on the youth that you are around. And that came out, I know my daughter thinks very well. They did speak about their trials and trying out for different roles, and that they could do it from a hotel room, like putting a mattress up against the door so no one could hear what was going on. So just so you know, our house and the mattresses do sometimes get up against the door.
Yes.
So they're trying to do this at home now.
That's right.
Well,
it's just to let you know.
I've used just pillows, so you don't have to use the whole mattress to move it. Just pile pillows around.
And time to get that California king up on the wall.
Tell them what you do when you're like on the road and you do audiobooks.
So one time, and again, you're not supposed to do this. One time I had to do an audiobook that had a very tight deadline, and I was doing a lot of traveling. So there is an audiobook out there, and I won't tell you which one, that if you listen, if you gain it up super loud, you can hear 6 different hotel locations during the course of this book. Now, let me tell you why that's bad. So, because it's different soundscape. You can create a little cubbyhole of audio sweetness, but what happens is you've got people, I'm talking like people out in the halls talking, and I have to I gotta keep going. And I gotta notch it out, and I gotta throw a filter on there, and this and that, denoise and all this kind of stuff, and high pass it, and so I have to go, it's tough. But there is one book out there, and luckily, the gentleman that wrote the book is elderly, so he can't hear very well. So he liked it. So what I do is what you have to do is you kind of have to have a little bit of audio background. You have to know what you can get away with and what you can filter out with the various filters in Pro Tools or Logic or whatever program that you use. And then you use pillows. Pillows are your friends, quilts, things like that. It's not about completely deadening the room, because you're not going to do that. You just can't do that. But it's about lessening the ambient noise and also the way your voice goes out. So right now, the voice is going out. You want to contain this as much to be right here. And this is an omnidirectional mic. You don't want to use this kind of mic, because it's going to pick up everything going on out there, and the George Clooney scarecrow is going to get picked up and things like that. So it's all about knowing audio stuff, and Eric knows a ton of audio stuff, and I want to go intern at his house, and he's
Come on over.
He's like, Todd, it's 3 in the morning. What do you want to do? I go, I'll make coffee. I'll take your time. Veronica's on coffee.
Coffee, you can clean.
There we go.
Yes.
he gets that 10-second Anime Festival Orlando copy, and his voice is hurting, and Dante's not available because he's in the
Page
Philippines.
100. We got a couple more minutes right before they kick us out. We got 5 minutes. I'm just going to say one quick thing because I got a little plug about what I'm doing today at 4:30. I'm playing an acoustic concert in the Game Room Theater. There will be no games, but I will be playing that. So if you're checking the schedule, it does say so it's 4:30 in the Game Room Theater. Anyway, so we have 5 minutes.
Well, answer quickly.
Yeah, real fast answers.
Okay, I know that you play a lot of heroes in the anime, but there is one character that is not a hero, and that is Hagami Mikami from Separate. How did you like when you worked as a villain in Separate?
Villains are a lot of fun because they can color outside the lines, and heroes are great because they're going to be around for the whole show. But if you think a hero is only as memorable as his villain, so I mean that's kind of fun.
That's true. Rick, that's a good point. Yeah, good answer.
My favorite part is that Hagami Mikami got butt kicked by Miyato.
I like butts and I like kicking them.
That's our next poem.
My shoulder really like. I'm just kidding. I'm very short. I know, and it's nice and pretty and shiny.
Totally depends. Sometimes when I did Call of Duty, didn't see anything but a spreadsheet. And then that game turns out to what it looks like. It's amazing. So you have to really create. That's why having a stage background and starting it on camera and film and stuff really helps with the VO for me. But sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's animatics. When we did Knights of Sidonia for Netflix, it was just animatics, very rough animatics. When I did Monster High or Ever After High, it's very rough animatics, and then they go in and they refine it. Sometimes it's, it's all variety of things.
I guess this is going to be our last one,
5:30.
Right? Yeah, this will be our last one. Yeah, okay.
But hold on now. Now you got to ask one more. You can't just willy-nilly just pick something. I mean, no, ask him. But you got to we got to see the drama and the tension.
The closing ceremony.
There we go.
Thunder, thunder, thunder.
That's my jam. That's my raspberry jam right there.
Is there anything you guys wish you had known getting into the profession before you guys had gotten in?
Oh, there's a lot of things I wish.
Like if you were me right now?
Yeah. It's still a job.
Yeah.
It's still a job. You still have to work hard at doing it. When you are pursuing anything that is in the arts, you look at us, we're up here on the dais, and you're like, oh, those guys, it's celebrity stuff, whatever it is. It's still a job. Like it's hours in the booth. It's keeping your voice in good shape. It's working on your craft. Just don't take that stuff for granted. The things I played sports as a kid, stuff like that. It's the same kind of thing. Really, it's a passion. What I would have liked to know back then is not to have played tennis as much as I did because I needed shoulder surgery. That's what I wish I had known. I wish I didn't hit the ball so hard. That's honest, because now I can't really do this very well, and I need to do this when I have questions in a panel. Does that help you?
Yeah, and as much as it's a job, also the thing you gotta know is it's a lifestyle. So beyond being a job, it's just to be an artist, which everyone, like most people here, I look around, you guys are artists. And to be an artist is that we're not like regular people. You know what I'm saying? There's certain things that are of value to us that maybe your parents don't value, your best friends, your siblings don't value, but it's a lifestyle. Art means something. A cosplay means something. A movie means something. And so, as much as the job, when you live the lifestyle of the artist, you're kind of dropping out of regular society and saying, I'm gonna go join the circus. And that's what it is. And there's aspects of that too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And my acting teacher had once said, if there's anything else you want to do more than acting, and I think it applies to being an artist or anything, if there's anything else you would rather do that. Because as an actor, the highs are high, but the lows are low, and you've got to know how to withstand it because you're creating and you're following your passion, and you have to be able to do that. Otherwise, you can do it as a hobby, but otherwise, if you can't, for anything that any of you choose to do, if you can't put yourself fully into it, you're not ever fully happy either.
And also, knowing when to say no to gigs. I know that sounds weird. It's like, why would you ever say no? Knowing when to say no is very important because you can have an abundance sickness. So they totally wrote a book about this. It's called Toxic Success. And so what it is, it's about people that the more successful you get, the harder it is for you to say no to gigs. And so then what you do is, all these other things in life are passing you by because you are so focused on getting that next gig. And guess what? The next gig will never stop being there. So then when you got kids, and now they're 5, and now they're 10, and now they're 15, and you can't remember the last time you went to their baseball game, you know what I mean? Knowing when to say no, and categorizing, and being able to partition certain things in your life. Okay, because I come from a thing where my mom worked all the time, and so that's all I saw, was a woman who worked all the time. So then I worked all the time, and I miss out on things in life. When friends are going out and doing things, I'm working. When friends are like, hey, our birthday party's coming up, blah, 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 I'm working. Funeral happens, I'm working. So gigs are lifestyles, but you also have to know how to balance those things. Moderation in all things, right? We don't like super skinny people. We don't like super gigantic people. We like moderation. You don't want to eat 15 meals a day, you want to eat 3 meals a day. Moderation. You know what I mean? Even if I gave you $1 trillion right now, that's the one case where moderation is not applied. But you know what I mean? It's moderation in all.
Keep doing voiceovers, and maybe one day you'll get that $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But anyway, no, we gotta turn over the room.
Thank you all so much.
I want to thank you guys.